this tutorial, we're going to be using Adobe Illustrator to create 2D CAD flats.
So there's something we refer to in Illustrator called shortcuts, and these are really useful when you're trying to work a bit faster, maybe doing multiple CAD flats. So things like copying and pasting or undoing, instead of having to go up to the main menu, you can do shortcuts on your computer. Now most of these shortcuts are accessed using one of the command buttons on your keyboard. So to give you some of the most useful ones, Command Z, which I'm sure you'll need to use a lot, is undo. So if you make a mistake, you can press Command Z and go back as many steps as you need. Command C is copy. Command V is paste. Command F is paste in front. So we're going to be using that a lot actually in this tutorial, where you paste something exactly where you've copied it from. Other useful ones are Command and plus to zoom in, Command minus to zoom out, and Command S to save. Another useful one is when you hold down the space bar, it allows you to move the screen around, and we're going to be using that a lot in this tutorial as well.
So when you initially open Illustrator, it looks something like this. The first thing you want to do is go to File and New. And then ideally it's best to work on an A4 piece of paper. You can find that under Print. So A4, and it doesn't really matter, it's entirely up to you whether you want to work on portrait or landscape. I'm going to try landscape for this tutorial. And then press Create. Now there's a few ways to set Illustrator up so it looks the same as mine. If you go to this top corner here, the best thing to press is Adobe Essentials Classics, and that will set up the page essentially like I've got it in front of me with the same kind of objects. So the first thing we'll kind of be getting used to is using the different selection tools.
So to demonstrate what those three tools do, with the selection tool, it allows us to move a whole item that's been grouped together around in one go. So it lets me take both these t-shirts around in one go. But however, I might want to just fill in a certain sleeve or something, and if I did that at the moment, it's just going to mess the whole thing up. So what I can use is the group selection tool. So the group selection tool is this arrowhead with a plus, and if I just click off the t-shirt now, it allows me to go in and just select certain elements of the t-shirt. So maybe I just want to change the colour of the back neck tape, for example. It just allows me to go and change certain things within that t-shirt. Then you've got something called the direct selection tool, which actually allows you to edit lines. So for example, maybe at the bottom here I want to just sort of change the length of the t-shirt or the actual line. It allows me to go in and actually make kind of edits here. It might be that I want to, I don't know, change the stitching or something. So it actually allows you to go in and edit like the sleeves and things. So it's another useful tool. So that, to recap, is the selection tool. You press and hold this one down and you've got the direct selection tool to actually physically edit lines, and the group selection tool to edit elements within something. You'll get used to these the more and more you use them.
To draw CADs up, I tend to use mainly just the pen tool, which is here, to create sort of a black outline of your CADs and then fill it in later on. So those are kind of the main three tools that you're going to be using on that palette. So how do we get started with drawing a CAD flat? So I've actually found a basic t-shirt online that I would like to do a trace of. You can bring it into your page. If you hold down Shift and take it in from the side, it prevents it from shrinking. If you don't hold Shift, you can see you can really distort it. So holding Shift keeps the item scaled, and you let go of the mouse and then let go of Shift. So what I'm going to do is start with my pen tool. Now I just want to create black outlines. So in terms of thinking of a shape, down here, this represents what the fill of the shape is, and this represents the outline. So I've got my black outline, and I don't want any fill. At the moment it's white. So to make sure there's an invisible fill, I just use this, which creates an invisible, so there's literally no fill. So I'm going to start up here doing the collar. Now it's really important that we draw all the different parts as different segments, so that perhaps if we want to kind of colour different areas in with perhaps a stripe or a colour, then we can fill in the different areas. It just helps, and it's a good way of drawing CADs. So I'm going to zoom in pressing Command and plus initially. And again, I really recommend really zooming in. The closer you are zoomed in, the easier it is to do this. So I'm going to start here and sort of just draw half of the t-shirt because it's obviously symmetrical. Now what we can do is get the ruler out just to measure halfway, which can be useful. You can do that by pressing Command and R on your keyboard. So let me just pull one of those rulers to about halfway approximately. So to start with my pen tool, just going to make sure I've got a black outline again because it's gone to invisible for some reason. So I've just got a black outline. I'm going to start here and I'm literally just going to lay what's called an anchor point. So I've just got a starting point here and you can see a blue line sort of showing me where the pen tool is going to want to go. Now I don't necessarily want to draw a complete straight line. So if I click and hold down the next time and I start to move my mouse around, you can see it starts to bend that line. So there we go, I've got a slight bend on it here. Then I'm just going to go and click that anchor point again. And again, just slightly pull my mouse to create a curved line. You'll see it a bit clearer here. So now I'm going to click here and hold down. And then I'm gradually pulling the mouse around to create a curved line over there. You can hold down Shift to make it a bit more regular if you need to. So there we go, got a nice curved line. Now I don't want to draw down here because I want to eventually join this up to when I've drawn half of the t-shirt here, flip it over and join the lines up. So what I'm going to do now is actually just go and click on one of the selection tools. So that's just basically just holding that shape there. Then I'm going to go back now and select my pen tool and go from this side. So I'm just going to try and join that initial anchor point that I created. And you can see at the moment next to the pen there's a little star tool. If I click on it or get near it, you can see that just turns to a little diagonal line. So then that means that I've joined up the line, and it's really important we join up the lines. So I'm going to click there, that's joined me up. And again, come back down to about here to join the bottom of that collar piece up. And again, I'm just holding down Shift to keep it a bit neater. And that's given me essentially half of that collar. Now as I zoom out, the next piece I'm going to do is half of the main kind of body. So taking that part of the neck, going over the shoulder, around and across the hem. So to make sure this is completely equal to that slice there, what I'm going to do now is get the direct selection tool, and that's just going to select that part of the line here. So if I click that, I can go to Object or Edit, copy and then paste, or you can do it the shortcut, which is selecting it and going Command C and Command F, which puts it literally straight on top, which is really useful here. So now I've got a separate line, a new line directly on top. So again, I'm going to get my pen tool and link up. So I'm waiting for that as I hover over the star to turn to a little diagonal line, clicking on it, and then I'm going to gradually just try and draw the outline, gradually pulling so it's a slight curve on there. Now, obviously it's wanting to now kind of curve like a piece of string. So the best thing to do is go and re-click on there and it will stop it naturally wanting to go in the other direction. And sometimes it's better to zoom out when you're trying to do bigger curves, but essentially I want to kind of go down here. Now if I come off or haven't got enough room, what I can do is go back and get the direct selection tool, and when I click on the line you'll see this big blue line that's sort of allowing you to change the angle. If I grab the end, it must be the end of one of these, you can see it allows me to edit the line so I can pull it up or down to sort of fit the shape that I want it to create. So I'm going to go back and get my pen tool again. I'm waiting for that star to turn to a little dash. And now I'm going to move the screen around, I'm holding down the space bar, which is creating this hand tool, which is really useful because when I let go, it naturally reverts back to the previous tool I was using. So it's quite useful. So I'm just going to try and get down to about the bottom. Now you don't want to have like CADs, you want the lines to be as straight as possible. You don't want sort of really wiggly ones because it's supposed to be a kind of a flat garment. But I'm getting down to the bottom here, and I might want to put a bit of a curve on the bottom. And then I'm going to leave that one there because again, what we're going to do, because this is symmetrical here, is just copy this side and paste it and flip it over in a moment. So the next part I want to do is the sleeve. So again, I'm going to get the direct selection tool and just select this curve in the arm, copy it, Command C, paste on top, which is Command and F. And I'm going to start at the top here. I might want to zoom in a bit again. And start tracing around the outline of the sleeve here. Now what I really need to do at the end is make sure it's linked up, so you can see when the whole shape joins together, because it turns into a circle, like indicating that it's a whole shape, which means I can fill it later on. Maybe I want to add a stripe or a colour. So it's really important you get to that point where it's joined up, and that's now an entire shape. And just to sort of show you now, if I wanted to fill it in with a green, you see it's just allowing me to fill that area in. So what I would also want to do when you're drawing CAD flats is indicate where there's things like stitching. So I'm just going to go up here and draw another line, just clicking to about here, obviously just doing halfway again. And I wanted to sort of reflect the same kind of shape as the previous one. And what I can do here is add a dash to it. So that's quite a big dash. I'm probably going to narrow that down. You can sort of experiment to see what the best kind of dash is. And I'm also, a good practice is just to make the stitching slightly less thick line. So I've got a one size thickness for everything else. So I'm going to take that down to 0.5, which again is all on the stroke area. And then I also know that I'm going to have some stitch lines here. So I'm going to add some stitching there. It's remembered my stitch. If it hadn't remembered my stitch, I can go and get something called the eyedropper tool. So the eyedropper tool, which is this one here, it might be under the measuring tool. You can click it and you can click on anything. So maybe if I wanted to do the same outline as I've got there, I could click it on that and it would just replicate whatever previous choice you've made. So if I take it up to this stitching at the top, it's going to copy that one. So I want two of these lines because I'm going to imagine that it's double twin needle stitching. So I'm going to copy and paste, so Command and V, or edit, copy and paste. So I've got another line of that stitching. And again, I'm just using what's called the selection tool up here, the dark one, to line it on top. So the other thing I'm going to do here is imagine I'm drawing the back neck too. So I'm going to copy this line here. So using the direct selection tool, copying and pasting straight on top. So Command C and Command F, getting my pen tool, clicking so that I'm on that line, and just starting to draw the back neck as well. Then I'm going to go and do the bottom line. So I don't want to connect it up because that'll get messy. So I'm just going to click the selection tool, then go back to my pen tool and do the bottom bit as well. So I also know that t-shirts quite often have like back neck tapes, so I'm going to add one of those in. So I'm going to take that line here, copy it and paste on top again, Command C and Command F, and then copy and paste again. So I've got two, because I'm just going to drop one down. So essentially you can see now I've got two lines that I've copied and pasted on top of each other. And I'm just going to link those up over here. And again, I'm just going to add some stitching, so copying and pasting using my eyedropper tool. Copy and paste that again, so I've got some stitching there as well. So I've almost got like half my t-shirt now. So I'm actually going to delete my template now because I don't need it anymore. What I want to do is make sure that the back neck bits are actually at the back when I'm colouring it in. So what I'm going to do is go to select both of them, and I've just used the selection tool here, drawn like a magic box over them, which is selecting them both, and you can go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back, and that just means that it will sit behind this piece. So if I colour it in, that piece is in the front essentially. So what I'm going to do now is select all of this area. So again, I'm going to get that selection tool, draw a square over all that area. You might need to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to copy, so Command C or Edit, Copy. And then I want to paste on top. So I'm going to do Command F, or you can go to Edit and Paste in front. So then I've got essentially on here, I put it to sort of show you two parts of those t-shirts right on top of each other. What I'm going to do now is go to Object, Transform, Reflect, and you can see it's just reflected that. So you make sure you select vertical and click OK. Now I hold down Shift and then click on my t-shirt. You must click on one of the black lines. If you try and click in here, because there's no fill, it won't select anything, it will just mess it up. So make sure you try and click on one of those lines, and then you just pull it across. Now you make sure you don't like overlap them, because what we need to do now is join these lines up. So if you zoom in, just make sure there's a bit of a gap in between them. I'm going to get rid of my ruler now, so I literally select it and click delete. And now I'm going to make sure that I join these lines up. I'm going to start at the bottom because it's not so confusing, and start joining those bits up. Now there's bits underneath, so the best thing to do is make sure you hide bits. So you can press Command and free. So if I hide this, I know I'm going to get those bits, because what you don't want to do is connect the body to the collar. If you make a mistake, press Command and Z and it will take you back a step. So now I've managed to do that bit. Once I've done it, I'm going to hide it. So Command 3, just to make sure I don't start connecting the wrong bits to the wrong areas. See there, it's actually tried to connect me to that back bit. So I'm actually going to press Command and undo, and I'll come back to that one in a second. So I'm going to now try and do this top one and hide it. So I might have to go back and connect some other bits up, but essentially that's connecting most bits. So this is allowing me now, if I want to fill it in, I'm going to fill this in a light grey just so you can see it, to start to fill in different areas with different colours. And it also means that, you know, if you're doing something with contrast sleeves and things, that you can, you know, add different colours to different areas. So what I'm going to do here, you can sort of see that my stitching's over the top here, so it's just playing around with that aligning. So I'm actually going to make sure that these lines are joined as well, because I missed those out previously. So what I'm going to do here, that's instantly taken it at the back, but what I could have done is select all that again and gone to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. I've got a little area here that isn't coloured. For that, you could just grab a tool and just do a rectangular kind of box. And again, you could use the eyedropper tool to select a colour from here, and again you could just send that to back. So Object, Arrange, Send to Back. And then essentially I've got a t-shirt here. I'm actually going to fill mine in with white, just like the t-shirt that we had as an example here originally. So what I do want to add at the bottom is some stitching. So I'm just going to get the selection tool, the direct selection tool again. Now there's a few different areas here, so what I want to do is do a rectangle over that area and copy and paste, so I've got the whole line there, not just half of it. Then use the eyedropper tool to select the previous stitching, and then I'm just going to copy and paste on in front. So I've got 2 lines of stitching there. Now you don't necessarily have to do this end part, but I quite like doing it. It's making sure that where there's sort of the final outline is slightly thicker. So I'm going to select the body now it's filled, the 2 sleeves and that front part of the collar. I'm going to copy it, paste in front, so Command C and Command F. I'm going to fill it all with black, and then I'm going to go to Object, Expand, and that's going to make the whole thing a shape essentially. Then I go to Pathfinder and select both of these paths, this one and this one, which makes it an entire shape. Then I'm going to change the outline and make the outline slightly thicker. And then also going to take that back neck, just the top part, using the direct selection tool, copying and pasting on in the front, and also making a slightly thicker line there, just to give it sort of some thickness to the outskirts. And again, I can sort of go in and play with that line if I need to take it a little bit further to the edge using the direct selection tool. I can also see from here earlier that there's a piece that I haven't joined up. So again, I'm just going to go and get my pen tool and join that up. And there I have a t-shirt.
So now I've finished our t-shirt. Obviously we've got all these different sections, and if we try to move it at the moment, it's just going to pull different sections away. So we want this to be grouped as one. So the best thing to do is get the selection tool, draw a big rectangle over the whole thing so every part is selected. When I let go, you'll see that it's naturally selected. And then you can go to Object and Group, or you can press Command and G, and that will group it together. And that means that now if I move the CAD around, it keeps together. and we can make it bigger and smaller, holding shift to make sure it stays scaled, which is really important. So we can start to place it in different areas, which is really important if we want to start range building and maybe adding a pair of jeans and other things in the process of range planning. So that's essentially how you draw a basic t-shirt.
Now it might be just that I'm happy with a plain white t-shirt, but I might want to do something like this COS one here. So I'm actually going to go and take the red from that COS t-shirt. So I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, because you can also copy colours as well. So I'm grabbing that and selecting the red. And I'm going to pull that red into my swatches palette. If you haven't got a swatches palette, you can find all these palettes under here. So you just go down to swatches and your one would pop up. So I'm initially going to go and get those two parts of my collar there and do it in red. Now what I also want to do perhaps is do a stripe like this. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to get my triangle tool, my rectangle tool, sorry even, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. Now I don't want it to have any outlines, so I'm going to make sure that the outline is empty, and I'm going to take the same colour as the COS t-shirt, so I don't know if that's a black or perhaps a dark navy. I'm then going to copy and paste that rectangle on top, so Command C and Command F. I'm going to pull it down to make the white part and choose a white here. So I've got kind of the same sort of stripes. If I put that actually onto the grey area, you can see here that I've mimicked one of those stripes. So what I can do now is drag this stripe. So to select both areas, you're making sure you've got the selection tool, the plain black triangle selection tool, and drag and drop that into my swatch palette. You can see when I drop it in that a little green plus sign comes up, and you can see that stripe's just dropped in there. So now what I can do is select that body part, make sure I'm doing the fill and not the outline. If I do the outline, you won't be able to see it go in, it won't work. You want to keep your outlines black. So the fill I'm making sure is now that stripe. So then if I want to go and do a sleeve, I can do the same thing. So I'm selecting the sleeve, but obviously that just makes the stripe go across. What we can use here is this tool, the rotate tool. So what we do is double click that rotate tool, and you can put in a degrees. Now it's flipped the whole of the t-shirt. I don't want to do objects, so it's just transforming patterns that I want to do. You can also do a minus there if you'd rather. So you can keep playing with it until you get the right degree. So I've kept playing around with it. You can just pull off preview until you get the right angle. So for the other sleeve, what I'm going to do is select it, use the eyedropper tool, and take that. Now, obviously, it's the same way around. So what we can do now is use this object, transform, reflect again, and this time we can just reflect the pattern. So it's just reflected the pattern there. So again, not object, just the pattern, and click OK. And then I might want to also put that into the back neck, and then also I might want to do the back neck taper. I don't know, I could do it any colour, or perhaps we'll just keep it to the red as well. So there, now I've got a striped t-shirt as well. So at this point you want to save your project. So you can go to Save As, File, Save As. I could call it T-shirt CAD flat. And this will save it as an Adobe Illustrator file. So you want to decide where you're going to save it. And that means as an Adobe Illustrator file, if I want to come back and fill it with, say, denim or a floral, or change it to blue, red, I can always come back and save that for another time. And if I'm wanting to start range planning, I could now just make that CAD smaller on my page if I wished, and start adding other CADs around it.